What if everything you thought you knew about creation was just part of the story? Imagine a scroll, older than time itself, hidden not by enemies of God, but by Noah's own sons. A scroll so dangerous, so earth-shattering, it had to be buried, its truths silenced for millennia. What secrets could be so terrifying they risked rewriting our very understanding of heaven, earth, and even God's first creations? Long before Moses penned the iconic words, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," whispers in ancient texts speak of another, forgotten scroll. Not etched on stone tablets, nor sheltered in the ark, this ancient document barely survived the Great Flood. Its contents, according to these rare accounts, told a version of creation that began before time as we know it. But here's the shocking twist. This scroll was intentionally concealed by the very men we consider faithful preservers of God's word, the sons of Noah. What did it contain that demanded such extreme measures? Why was it buried, hidden, or even destroyed, especially after the flood, an event meant to cleanse and reveal? Some believe the answer lies not in sin or punishment, but in the terrifying knowledge the scroll held. Knowledge that could fundamentally alter our understanding of creation, its origins, and even God's relationship with his earliest creations. This other scroll didn't begin with Eden or Adam. It opened with a realm of pure light, predating stars and sky. Within this realm existed beings of immense brilliance who received a sacred law and tragically broke it. The scroll depicted a divine rebellion, not in our familiar heavens, but in a former creation that collapsed long before the serpent ever whispered to Eve. That world, judged and erased, became the ashes from which our current Genesis narrative arose. Entrusted to Noah not as a reward but as a heavy burden, the scroll was hidden deep within the ark, beneath sacred wrappings. Yet, once the waters receded, Noah didn't reveal its contents. Instead, he gathered his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and issued a solemn warning. This must never be read aloud. Their subsequent actions would echo as silence throughout Scripture. Shem, it said, argued for its preservation, believing that even dangerous truth was part of God's plan. Ham vehemently disagreed, fearing that if its contents reached future generations, another devastating fall would inevitably occur. Japheth, caught between his brothers, suggested hiding it where no human could find it until God's appointed time. Ultimately, they acted in unison. They didn't burn it, they didn't read it. They hid it in silence. Intriguing fragments from ancient Mesopotamia, aligning suspiciously with early post-flood genealogies, mention a record of the skyfire buried beneath a stone altar built by the sons of a righteous man. This altar, never used for sacrifice, was abandoned in a desolate plain. Local traditions warn that digging beneath it awakens the memory of the first fall. Scholars dismiss this as folklore, but some rabbis and early Christian mystics whispered it was Shem's compromise, to protect what needed preserving but never revealing. This raises a disquieting question. What exactly did that scroll say that instilled such fear even in righteous men? One possibility lies in its reported opening line, which supposedly differed from Genesis. Instead of "God created the heavens and the earth," it allegedly began with, "Before God moved upon the waters, he withdrew from another realm." This single phrase would challenge everything we know, suggesting our world wasn't God's initial act of creation, but a response to a catastrophic failure. If true, our entire existence, Eden, our history, our fall, might be built upon the ruins of something far older, holier, and more terrifying. A world judged not for eating fruit, but for betraying a deeper, divine knowledge. The scroll reportedly warned that uncovering this lost knowledge would not enlighten humanity, but undo it. This is why it had to vanish. Centuries later, traditions surrounding this hidden scroll surfaced in unexpected places, particularly in the writings of sects labeled heretical by mainstream Judaism. References to a book before the beginning describe a law predating the commandments, a light older than the sun, and a fall occurring not in Eden, but in a realm of pure spirit. They even mention beings of breath and flame who refused a divine command and were erased. Curiously, these texts consistently conclude with the same line. Their names are not remembered, for the sons of Noah sealed the truth. If these stories are echoes of the hidden scroll, then Noah's sons weren't just patriarchs of new nations. They were guardians of a secret older than any empire, a truth powerful enough to destabilize humanity's understanding of God's timeline. What they chose to bury wasn't just dangerous. It was prophetic. It implied that the flood wasn't solely about punishing human sin, but about burying a deeper, spiritual failure. We often see Noah's family as survivors and founders. But what if they were also silencers? What if they stepped off the ark not just to rebuild, but to conceal? In this light, their silence wasn't cowardice. It was strategy. By hiding the scroll, they allowed humanity to grow under a limited, safer version of the truth, one that spoke of Eden and Adam, rather than what came before them. Yet not all agreed with this silence. A fragment attributed to an early priestly scribe mentions a significant disagreement between Shem and one of his descendants. This younger man, reportedly blessed with fiery dreams and angelic visions, demanded to know the scroll's truth. Shem, then old, warned him, "You seek what was sealed by judgment. If you open it, the fire returns." The descendant left in anger, his name lost to history, but his legend endured among those who believed the scroll was never truly lost, only waiting. Later centuries saw mysterious references to a pre-Genesis book among early Christian mystics and desert fathers. One 3rd century monk claimed to have found mention of a scroll beginning not with creation, but with collapse. He quoted what he believed to be its first line, "The light withdrew." He asserted the original creation had no darkness until a being chose to withhold praise from the Creator, triggering a fall so devastating that God unmade that world in silence. This, he claimed, was what Noah's sons were sworn to protect. Why would such knowledge be dangerous? Because it implies a version of God's work that includes failure, a reality where divine perfection permitted disobedience, and where free will existed even before Eden. For theologians bound to a linear, infallible timeline, this was blasphemy. For others, it was revelation. If God granted choice before humanity existed, then the story of redemption didn't begin with Adam. It began in another world. If this is true, the scroll wasn't just ancient. It was the origin of the eternal war between obedience and rebellion. This scroll, some claim, also detailed a group of beings assigned to oversee the new creation, the earth we inhabit. But one of them questioned the Creator's decision to start anew. This being didn't fall like Lucifer. Instead, he simply vanished. The scroll allegedly ended with a chilling phrase, "And the watcher who asked was unmade in the breath of God." Those who've studied early mystical texts believe this was the true beginning of the angelic schism. Not rebellion, but doubt, recorded and then hidden by Noah's family. A few brave researchers have attempted to trace remnants of this lost scroll through texts like the Book of Jubilees, Enoch, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and even the earliest Samaritan writings. Each contains faint allusions. The untold story, the unopened record, the tablet buried in silence. Curiously, some old Arabic and Ethiopian Christian manuscripts contain diagrams, even maps, hinting at a burial place marked by 3 standing stones. These stones, arranged in a perfect triangle, each representing one of Noah's sons, were said to have been placed by a prophet's sons after a flood. At the center, a 4th stone once stood but was later removed. Locals believed it marked the entrance to an underground chamber where the scroll, sealed in fire-resistant clay and wrapped in sacrificed animal skin, was placed. The chamber was then sealed with stone and a curse. Anyone unearthing it without divine permission would see what was meant to be forgotten. Whether the curse is real or not, traces of this other Genesis continue to emerge. In 1947, among the Dead Sea Scrolls, some fragments didn't match any known biblical text. A few contained phrases eerily similar to whispers about the hidden scroll, creation before separation, and the void was filled twice. Scholars dismissed these as poetic anomalies, but some believe they were remnants, scraps of a story that shouldn't have survived. One particularly strange fragment, now in a private collection, describes the breath before breath and mentions that the first law was silence. If genuine, this aligns with the theory that the original creation operated not through spoken command, like, "Let there be light," but through presence, an existence beyond words. When that realm fell, God shifted to a new method, speaking creation into being. This suggests Genesis, as we know it, wasn't the beginning, but a second attempt. But why would Noah's sons, chosen to repopulate the world, conceal such a revelation? The answer may lie in what they witnessed. The flood didn't just destroy the wicked. It erased civilizations, languages, even spiritual realms. If true, the other scroll didn't contradict Genesis. It completed it, and that's precisely why it had to be hidden. There's also a mysterious tradition among certain early mystics that Noah himself regretted giving the scroll to his sons. One Coptic fragment claims Noah cried out to God after the ark landed. "The knowledge is too great for flesh. Let the earth swallow what the heavens could not contain." According to the same document, an earthquake occurred days later near the ark's resting place. Not one that destroyed, but one that sealed. A divine act of concealment. But the most haunting part, the same scroll is said to contain a prophecy not of the past, but of the future. A day when humanity would seek knowledge above all else, when the hidden things of old would rise again, and the scroll would no longer be hidden by men, but by time itself, until a voice from the heavens declares, "It is time." On that day, the scroll would be found not by scholars, but by a child, a dreamer, or someone chosen not for power, but for purity. This prophecy echoes a disputed verse in the Book of Jubilees. "The scroll shall return with the fire, and the fire shall not consume it." While it may sound symbolic, some interpret it literally. A reference to divine preservation, a hidden truth that will survive judgment, war, and even the end of the world. And when it's read, the foundations of human understanding will be shaken, because it will not begin with Adam, but with what Adam replaced. Here lies the core danger of the scroll. It doesn't just tell a different story. It tells us we're not the first. That before humanity, there was something else, not animals, not angels, but a race of spirit and will, created in beauty, yet broken by pride. Their fall wasn't recorded in Genesis because Genesis was written to begin after them. And their story, buried by flood, sealed by stone, and hidden by Noah's sons, is what the other scroll reveals. Some ancient commentators hinted these pre-Adamic beings weren't entirely destroyed. According to the first book of Enoch, some watchers fell, but others simply vanished or were locked away. The scroll allegedly described a realm between realms, a sealed dimension where the remnants of this former creation were cast, not for punishment, but to be forgotten. A place so disconnected from time that even angels were forbidden to speak of it. A spiritual exile unreachable unless the scroll were read again. The silence of Noah's sons may be nearing its end. If the scroll still exists, whether physically, spiritually, or prophetically, it's beginning to speak again. And it may not whisper, it may roar. The only question is, will we listen, or turn our faces away as they once did, afraid of a truth too heavy for the world? This isn't just a tale of ancient secrets. It's a call to re-examine everything. If this message has stirred your heart, don't let it fade. Share it with someone who seeks deeper truth. And tell us, from which city or nation are you watching this? Because together we might be the generation that finally remembers what the sons of Noah chose to forget.